Padrino, there's a beautiful woman right there who doesn't have a partner. You see her. She's wearing a black, floor-length evening gown. 45 degrees to your right. This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition. Dreams and Nightmares, Part 7. When we left off, there was drama as usual in the relationships of the individuals in the five families. Catherine was adjusting to her new life as a nobody in the St. James organization. And if you watch bonus episode 1, parts 1 and 2, then you already know that Catherine put a nigga on his back and stood around and watched while the women at the battered women's shelter battered his behind. She started out cleaning and heating up canned goods and worked her way up to being the life skills teacher. And being able to defend yourself from a nigga trying to beat you down is absolutely a life skill. So the day after, Catherine had Kiana showing up to her lease signing appointment looking like a damn clown. Both Catherine and Kiana showed up for the rescheduled appointment. Summer had called Catherine and told her that she needed to be present. And when Catherine arrived shortly after Kiana had, she was shocked to see her not dressed in the clothes that she'd carefully selected for her. She was confused about why the woman was sporting a basic wrap instead of the layered weave that she'd had the hairstylist install. She didn't ask any questions, though. She took a seat and observed the process. She was happy to see how happy Kiana was. Joy was emanating from every pore of the woman's body. When the signing was over, Catherine had the audacity to ask why Kiana didn't look the way Catherine had expected. And in response, Summer slapped the photos that she'd taken of Kiana the day before on the table and asked, which version of herself does she look most comfortable with? Catherine looked at the pictures and looked at Kiana again. And she had to admit that Kiana certainly looked better as this version as opposed to a mini version of Catherine, because she could not understand how the woman could make a tailored designer business suit look like a two-piece set from TikTok, or why her very expensive weave was looking like a damn bird's nest. Before she could voice any of that, though, Summer said, I believe you owe Kiana an apology, and you need to examine your perspective of what it means to help these women put their lives back together. And thankfully, Catherine apologized, despite the fact that she wasn't 100% sure where she'd gone wrong. Kiana said, I forgive you, and thanks for trying. Then she looked at Summer and said, and I spent most of yesterday thinking about the things that you said. This is a whole new world for me, and it's going to take some time. But I think I'll get there. Summer said, I know you'll get there. Then she told Catherine all about the discussion that she had with Kiana. And all Catherine could do was nod and keep her mouth shut. Because by her estimation, she hadn't done anything wrong. Kiana should have just said that she needed better underclothes. She should have said that she didn't have experience walking in heels. She should have said that she needed help maintaining the weave. Because in Catherine's mind, turning down styling by a man who had a price tag of $250 per hour and spa quality beauty services inside the battered woman's shelter provided by a woman who charged $200 just to show up and didn't offer a service that cost less than $150, plus the free designer clothes. And the makeup artist was not a viable option. Kiana should have been appreciative, and so should Summer. Hell, the budget that the St. James Corp had given her to get Kiana ready was absolutely laughable. There was nothing she could have done with $750. The shoes that she'd selected for Kiana had cost twice that amount. Catherine listened while Summer explained to Kiana that the shelter's van driver who'd brought her to the lease signing meeting would now be taking her to a furniture store so that she could select the main pieces for all of the rooms in her new apartment. The van driver would take her to several big box stores so she could get everything she needed for her bathrooms and kitchen, and all of the other basic essentials, like towels and washcloths, bedding and small appliances. And when they were done, he'd take her to the apartment so that she could begin setting up and marking where she wanted the furniture placed. The furniture would be delivered by Monday, and she could take the children by the apartment over the weekend so that they could see it for themselves and participate in deciding where they wanted their furniture placed in their rooms. When Kiana asked if it was possible that the children could go with her to make all of the selections, since this would be the very first apartment that they would have together, where they would be the ones deciding what would be in it. And Summer said absolutely. She'd arranged with the AD to have the van driver take her and her children to complete the shopping the following day, since it would be Saturday and the children wouldn't have school. Doing so might delay the furniture delivery by a day or two, but as long as she was okay with moving in the middle of the week, that would probably be fine with everyone else involved. Then Summer handed her a voucher for the furniture store and gift cards for all of the big box stores. And then she said, going shopping tomorrow will actually give you and the children more time to decide what to take and what to give away, and to pack up whatever you decide to keep so that it can be moved over to your new place. And then Kiana told her that she and her children didn't have anything to pack up, and they certainly didn't have anything to move. All they had was the clothing and toiletries that the shelter had given them, and the clothes that Summer had purchased her the day before. And both Summer and Catherine's hearts sank into their stomachs. And Summer said, I'll call the CEO and get approval for you and the children to get everything else that you need. If you can give me a list of your and their favorite stores, I'm sure I'll be able to get gift cards for all of them. When Catherine asked, why not just give her a credit card? Summer said, we do gift cards for the specific stores just to help the women hold themselves accountable. We don't want to risk their abusers getting in contact with them, getting access to any unlimited or unfettered funds. And some of these women are recovering from substance abuse, so we don't want to provide them with that kind of temptation. Catherine nodded and Kiana said, I understand. Larry is still in the hospital, and when he gets out, he's going to be locked up. So he certainly isn't going to have access to me, my children, or those gift cards. And I've never had a problem with substances. But I am not giving you any pushback. Gift cards are fine. They'll give me an opportunity to put the budgeting that Catherine has been teaching us into real life practice, because I'm going to need it to be able to pay all my bills, get groceries, and all the things. Because with my new job, I'm not eligible for food stamps. And that's not a bad thing. I am so appreciative of all of you all's help. I wouldn't have been able to do this for me and my children without y'all. And whatever you give me, I will stretch it and make it count. Matter of fact, we can get everything we need from Walmart. Catherine said, Walmart? Absolutely not. You'll get gift cards for name brand stores, or I'll give you my credit card. Summer chuckled and the meeting ended. And then Summer turned to Catherine and said, let's talk about how you managed to drive this train off the tracks. Catherine said, how was I supposed to know? Summer said, by looking at her circumstances. Or, instead of assuming, by asking her. I get that you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. But as I understand, you've been working with people who, Catherine cut off saying, before now, I only work with people who are accustomed to the finer things. Not one person I know has ever lived in a shelter. And everyone I work or associate with wears designer. And another thing, and Summer cut off saying, and instead of learning about the women and children you've been working with for months and getting an understanding of what they are accustomed to, you took your personal experience and applied it to a situation that required empathy and delicate care. Instead of empowering Kiana, you embarrassed and humiliated her. And when you were done, she was left feeling inadequate. Catherine said, that was not my intention. Tell me something. Where did you get the clothes that she was wearing today? Summer said the shirts came from New York and Company, the pants from Charlotte Russe, the shoes from Nine West. Catherine said, I've never heard of any of those stores before in my life. Where are they? Summer said, the mall. Catherine said, I haven't been in a mall since I was 19 years old. I haven't been inside a hair salon other than Belle Dame in decades. I've lost everything and I still don't prepare my own meals. Summer said, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe you should try living like 99% of Americans. Catherine said, I'm not American. You've seen my passport. Summer said, then maybe you should go back to Trinidad. Oh, that's right. If you did, you'd have to prepare your own meals, drive yourself where you want to go, and shop in a mall. Pissed, Catherine said, I quit. And then she stormed out. When the driver pulled up at the St. James estate, Natalia was waiting for her there. She said, I heard about your conversation with Summer. I'm not here to help you change your mind. I'm just here to remind you that one of the perks of your job is you being able to stay here and enjoy all of the amenities. For the most part, you can continue enjoying the lifestyle that you've become accustomed to. Since you quit your job today, I'm sure that Saint is going to be expecting for you to find other accommodations. I suggest that you take the weekend to consider all of your options and let me know by Sunday night if your resignation stands. Pissed, Catherine hopped back into the chauffeured car and made a beeline for Janelle's. Because while Catherine had been working diligently at the battered women's shelter, Janelle and Rain had moved in with Jerome. When Catherine arrived, Janelle was excited to see her. It was her first time visiting her at her new place. Janelle said, I'm still redecorating because Jerome was a bachelor for a long time, and this place does not meet my expectations. But the house itself is real nice. Come on in. And then she looked at Catherine's facial expression and realized that something was horribly wrong. She said, well, what done happened now, Ma? And Catherine told her everything. When she was done, she said, can I move in here with you? Janelle laughed and said, of course you can. Well, I got to discuss it with Jerome, but I'm sure he won't have a problem with it. But where you going to work? When Catherine just looked at her, Janelle said, I know you don't think. You're going to stay here with us, and you're not going to have no job. Everybody up in here over the age of 18 is employed. So where you going to work? Catherine said, I can't work under summer. And if you let me stay here temporarily, I promise I won't be here long. I just have to figure out how to buy a house. I got the money for it. And Janelle burst into laughter. She said, you mean to tell me that you can afford to buy a house? You just haven't because you don't know how? I thought they hired you over at that battered women's shelter so that you could help empower the women. You can't be that inept. Catherine said, watch your mouth. I'm not inept. I just usually use the 5 families, real estate services to procure whatever properties I want to own. I actually own 2. They're just not in Miami. I don't know any realtors or... Then she stopped and remembered that Jerome was a realtor and Janelle worked in his office and for Montclair Enterprises. She was also taking classes to get her own realtor's license. Janelle said, I already know what you're thinking. Yes, Jerome and I will help you with that. But that doesn't solve the other issue. Where you gonna stay until then? Because you can't stay here without a job. Catherine said, I have money. What bills do you need me to pay? Janelle said, we don't need you to pay nothing. And while we are closer than friends, I've got to tell you the same thing I've told my friends, who've all asked about crashing with us. Because they broke, busted, and disgusted. You can't stay here without a job. Because then we know for sure that you're getting the hell out. Catherine just laughed. Because she wasn't going to make sense of what Janelle was saying. And Janelle wasn't going to accept the fact that she didn't actually need a job to take care of herself. She had plenty of money. Janelle said, and like I told them, if you're going to stay here, you got to pay bills, you got to cook, and you got to clean. And since you're the grandma, you got to help us with rain. Matter of fact, I think it's a good idea. Because this whole experience will help you relate to the women that we serve. Catherine said, we serve. Janelle said, yes, because you're going back to your job. Catherine said, whatever, but who is this we you're speaking of? Janelle said, I work at the shelter. You ain't know that? Catherine said, no, I had no idea what you were doing for Montclair Enterprises. I thought you were doing something in real estate. Janelle said, I got to get my license first. They ain't playing. I'm taking my classes, learning everything that I can learn at Jerome's real estate firm from him and his partners, and working overnight at the shelter. I organize and clean everything that was used the day before. Set up for the following day. Do rounds in the living quarters because most of the security are men. And you know men not allowed back there. And I help new women who come in overnight get registered and settled in. Catherine asked, and do you like it? Janelle said, I love it. Plus, I don't have to put Rain in daycare or hire a babysitter. He's home with his daddy overnight. We switch in the morning. I throw something in the crock pot or prep the meal for the night while I wait for Simone to come over after she finishes her morning classes. Then I get some sleep, and by the time Jerome gets home, whatever I put in the crock pot is done, or he wakes me up after he cooks whatever I prepped. We have dinner, some family time, play with Rain, bathe him, read him a book, put him to bed, and have a little couple time. And then it's off to work. On his days off, I help over at the real estate agency and do my online classwork. And I'm sure you can get in the rotation of cooking and cleaning and taking care of Rain seamlessly. Catherine said, nope, I'm going back to the estate. Janelle said, I bet. But nah, player, you stuck here now. I was depressed, stressed, knocked up, and didn't know what the hell I was going to do with myself. You were the one who told me that God doesn't put more on us than we can handle. And if it feels like it's more than we can handle, that just means we're not fully relying on him to carry the weight. Ain't that what you said? When Catherine nodded her head, Janelle said, if the goal is to improve your relationships with your stepchildren and get back in Saint's good graces so that you can get back in a position of power in the 5 families, I don't think Natalia telling Saint that you quit is going to help you do any of that. And I don't think continuing to live off the St. James money is going to help all that much either. I say you take your job back and stay here Jerome will help you find your own house, and you can show everybody that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Catherine said, I have been doing everything I know how to do, and it's clearly not working. Not at that shelter, not in this family, and not with Saint. He won't even take my phone calls. Janelle said, when you were training Sincere to be the kingpin, you gave him assignments, right? He had to complete them to prove that he was capable and to earn his seat. Catherine said, yes, but what does that have to... Janelle said, Saint has given you an assignment. The last thing you want to do is fail. Has it ever occurred to you that Saint gave Natalia and Summer instructions to give you this assignment, to see if you would rise to the occasion or if you would quit? You've done manual labor and now you're a life skills teacher. You know all about preparing a woman to be hot stuff in the life. Maybe it's time you learn how to teach a woman how to be a bad bee in the civilian world. Catherine asked, and how am I supposed to do that? Janelle said, it's Friday. I'm off until Monday night. I'll let Jerome know that I won't be in the office tomorrow, and you and I are hitting the mall. Later that night, in Puerto Rico, the property that Emmanuel Lopez had designated for Melissa's Sweet 16 party was a huge mansion on a sprawling estate secured by a gate and lots of security and cameras. That property was crawling with Melissa's family and friends. The only member of her immediate family who wasn't in attendance was Regina, because she'd never gotten Angela's text message. So she'd never responded, and no one had seen or heard from her in months. Melissa didn't just invite children her age. She invited everybody. So all the adults, all of their children, and even members of security who she'd befriended or provided with spiritual services through her new nonprofit, God's Favorite, were on the guest list, and not one person turned her down. In addition, all of the students who she attended the light with, and all of the faculty and staff, with the exception of those who needed to remain on site to keep the facility secured, had been flown in on commercial flights, of course, by her Uncle Manny. An entire weekend of festivities had been planned. Those festivities began on Friday night, but Melissa and her immediate family arrived on Thursday. There were lots and lots of preparations that needed to be made, final details that needed to be pinned down, her final fitting for her huge, quinceañera-like, Cinderella-style princess ball gown, the other custom outfits that she would be changing into throughout the Sweet 16 party itself. Q and LJ wanted to ensure that all of the security plans were in place, checked, double-checked. And Angela and Anya wanted to ensure that all of the suites and the huge room where all of the small children and their paid caregivers would be during the actual party were all set up and stocked to Melissa's specifications. There would be a lot going on from Friday to Sunday, and it wouldn't be all child-friendly either. There would be activities that would just be for the children, where they would have supervision and security. But there were some activities planned for the adults as well. So with the ballroom of the mansion full, after dinner had been served, everyone was enjoying themselves. Melissa and her guests partied like it was 1999, even though her and her friends weren't born in 1999. The adults were having a ball too, though. The party itself was alcohol-free, but with an opportunity to let their hair down. Quite a few of the adult attendees were sliding off and spiking their own punch, going out back and sparking up some of the devil's lettuce, and a time was being had. The band finished playing, and the DJ started playing. And then Melissa had come out in her third outfit, got on the microphone, gave a brief speech, thanked everyone for coming, and then she said, there are equal numbers of men and women, so I expect for everyone to get a partner and get on this dance floor. The DJ is about to play my favorite song. And if I catch anybody not dancing, I'm going to be personally offended. LJ heard this announcement as he was walking back from the restroom. And when he got into the ballroom and took a look around, there were only two women who didn't have partners. The headmistress at the light, who was sitting down and elderly. And the second one was Lyric. He hadn't quite figured out why she was even there, because Bellamy's band was playing the event, but they had her understudy doing all the singing, and she'd sung one song that Melissa had dedicated to her parents. That appeared to be impromptu. So either she was on the guest list for some other reason, or she was someone's plus one. When he and Lyric made eye contact, she immediately made a beeline for the only other man in the room who didn't have a dance partner. And LJ concluded that she was his plus one. She ran over to Bosch, and Bosch ran away. He made a beeline for the headmistress. It was clear that she had no intentions of meeting Melissa's demands. But when she saw that fine young thing running down on her, she quickly popped up out her seat. I told y'all, Bosch was hard to resist. When LJ tried to slide back out the door so that he wouldn't have to dance with Lyric, Melissa, who still had the mic, didn't miss it. She stopped him in his tracks by saying, Padrino, Godfather in Spanish. There's a beautiful woman right there who doesn't have a partner. You see her. She's wearing a black floor-length evening gown, 45 degrees to your right. And when Q, who was standing with Angela, turned to look to see what woman Melissa was pointing out, he just chuckled. Then he whispered in Angela's ear, now what's the likelihood that that's a coincidence? Angela looked, and seeing the singer from Bellamy's, concern stirred in her gut. And realizing he wasn't going to get out of it, LJ made his way over to Lyric. He had to ignore the scowl on her face in order to ask her to dance. And as the song began to play, LJ realized that it was very familiar. It was the same song that he'd heard Lyric singing on her IG page the night that she tried to thank him for getting her vehicle repaired, getting her home safely. And Big Wood had told her to repay him with a song. He'd only listened to the first few sentences of that song when he was creeping on her IG page, because hearing it had made him uncomfortable. Since that time, several months earlier, he'd resisted the urge to go back on Lyric's page. And from the look on her face, it was clear that she had no clue that her song would be played at Melissa's Sweet 16. There was something else in her eyes, but he wasn't really sure what it was. Was she afraid? Embarrassed? Ashamed? He had no clue that writing and recording was one of Lyric's favorite pastimes. It was how she relieved stress, how she healed. She only posted her recorded songs on YouTube and Spotify under an alias. And the only person in the world who knew that she recorded was her uncle, because he paid for her studio time. It was one of the few things other than her therapy that she allowed him to pay for. So she couldn't understand how Melissa could have found this song. And she was almost 100% sure that the teenage birthday girl had orchestrated this whole little situation. And she didn't know why she'd do that either. She was pretty sure her uncle would not have betrayed her confidence and told a 16-year-old that she was the one who sung that song. Her concern, though, was that anyone in that room, including the man she was dancing with, could have found her IG page. And while she'd sung that song months before, and only sung one stanza of it on that IG page, didn't save it to her highlights, her story expired after 24 hours. There were thousands of views, and all she could do was pray that the man she was dancing with wasn't one of them. She took a deep breath and just hoped that things wouldn't get worse. And when she took that deep breath, LJ instinctively pulled her closer. And as they danced, he thought to himself just how perfectly she fit in his arms. He inhaled her perfume and looked down into her eyes. And all he could think was, don't get hard, don't get... And it was too late. He quickly put distance between himself and Lyric. And needing an excuse, he said, I ain't know you was a recording artist. And immediately she snatched away with a look of abject fear all over her face. And he didn't know if he'd pulled away too late and she'd felt the mountain that had arisen in his britches, or if it was something he'd said. What he did know was that the tailored pants he was wearing were not forgiving. And if he did successfully hide the feel of his bulge by pulling away, it wasn't nearly dark enough in that room to hide the appearance of it. So he immediately spent around and got the hell out of Dodge. Left the dance floor, the ballroom, the building. And inside that ballroom, Lyric was relieved that LJ had gotten the hell out of there. Because she didn't know why he'd gotten out of there. But what she did know was that when the song finished, the DJ said, ladies and gentlemen, that was the first time I laid eyes on you. Written, produced, sung by... And then he said her alias. She was mortified, and when she looked over at Melissa, the teenager had the audacity to wink.